Welcome in. Welcome in. This is my weekly live stream on elderly care. If you watched any of these videos, you know that what I do is talk about doing in home elderly care for an aging loved one. And I always say that doesn't have to be an aging loved one that you're caring for. It could be anybody, but most likely it will be an aging loved one that you're trying to set up care for at home. And what I've been doing in this video series is going through a list of items to prepare for initially, and then as you actually work your way through the process, um, the way that you want to implement the care for that individual. And I use my late grandmother, Ruth C. Kenton, as the case study because she is the one that I cared for in the last years of her life. So today, I'm going to do something a little different. Every once in a while, I'll switch it up and do something a little different because today is Mother's Day, and this is the first Mother's Day without Ruth being in my life. And um, I just want to do it like this and give appreciation to the moment of that. It being the first Mother's Day without her, because obviously she had been in my life since all of my existence and had been here for all previous Mother's Days. So, and kind of starting with that to broaden it out and talk just a little bit deeper about mothers and Mother's Day. I had, I like to say that I had three mothers growing up. One was Ruth. Um, Another one was a caretaker. Her name was Sadie Lou Stewart, and then the third one was my actual mother. And kind of talk a little bit about them and Sadie Lou and Ruth are no longer with us. My mother is still alive, but just speak a little bit about what that experience was and what it means to me. I don't have slides prepared for this. I'm gonna just talk off the top of my head about it, and we'll see where it lands. Yeah, and I'd probably put them in that order: Ruth, and then Sadie Lou, and then my actual mother, my biological mother. Um, so Ruth was always involved in me and my siblings' lives as a kid, growing up. And she was also a cornerstone. I mean, both of my grandparents were, but in this particular matter, Ruth was always a cornerstone for um, helping with things around the house and helping my mom navigate through different experiences and stuff. My mother had four kids, so I'm one of four, and she had four kids by the time I think my youngest sister, she was like 31 or 32 when my youngest sister was born. So she spent the majority of her 20s having kids. Ruth, a similar thing. Ruth had kids very young in life, or was considered normal then, but by today's standard, we would say, wow, that's young. And Ruth also had four kids that my mother's the oldest of, and she had those throughout her 20s. And then Sadie Lou, or as we called her, Miss Lou, she had a son named Lewis, and I don't know if she had any other kids. Lewis is, I think he might have been the only one, but she is um, or he's the one at least that I know about or was familiar with. And when I was young, I would see him. She had him when she was very young too. I think 17 or 18, something like that, and had him out of wedlock. And Miss Lou was a black lady in the South, during civil rights, and so that obviously carries its own set of circumstances with it. But she was employed at my grandparents' nursing home, Adams and Kenton Nursing Home, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe all three of those decades, maybe a little bit later. I'm not exactly clear on what the details are. I would say maybe she started in the 70s, something like that, because in the 80s when I was growing up, that's when she spent the time with us, and it was kind of like she was someone that my grandparents could trust, and then my mother needed help with the kids, and so Lou got assigned to come and spend time at our house and be our nanny, our caretaker. And me and my siblings have referred to her as kind of our loving mother. She was, which is very similar to Ruth's style of mothering. So when you would scrape your knee or, something like that, me and my siblings would get into a fight or whatever, she would be the one to kind of wrap us up in her arms and give us a kiss and, say that it's okay and just be that traditional positive female role in our lives. And she stayed with us, I don't know how many years, maybe until I was about 10, something like that. She would come over, and she was over about every day, at least a couple times a week. But it seemed like, as I'm remembering back on it, and of course it's been many years ago now. It seemed like she was over every day, and so she would look after us. She would help to clean the house. She would prepare meals. She would do laundry. Um, like a, I'm gonna say a modern day mammy. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, or what would be considered politically correct, but just to call it what it is. It was very much a black woman in the South caring for white kids. As a matter of fact, she used to refer to me and my siblings as her white children. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And the gifts that she gave us and just kind of gave us, like, not only with the love that she showed us and everything, and the introduction to um, black culture, um, we're we have so much gratitude for that, or I know I do. I'm sure my siblings do as well. We have so much gratitude for that, and um, yeah, just to give us that kind of love when we were young. Because my actual parents, their parenting style was different and was more authoritative, and to be fair to my parents, I'll say they were young and they had four kids and they were in over their heads, and I'm sure that was very stressful for them. But still, the result is the result, or the parenting style was the parenting style, and it was very refreshing for us to have that, to have somebody that uh, being yelled at, wasn't going to be the first response for any given situation. And yeah, it meant a lot, and we really loved her. We really loved her and appreciated her. And she died in 2007 or 8, something like that. And when she died, uh, I was actually surprised at how much it affected me. I mean, I was really sad. I was really sad, and I didn't realize that I would be that sad until it actually happened. Um, I saw her the day before she died. Me and my mother, my actual mother, she was in a hospice care facility, and we went to go see her. And just like, how awesome is this? Uh, no, she had a daughter as well. Now that I'm telling the story, I remember now that her daughter was there, and she told her daughter. I went to visit her, and she was 93, I think, and she was bedridden and she couldn't move. And I remember her. She was shaking, and she couldn't see, and she could barely speak, and she could hear a little bit. And she told her daughter that she was ready to go home. And her daughter says, "Okay, we'll take you home in a little bit." And she said, "No, I'm ready to go to my heavenly home." And that stuck with me. She was a faith-based woman, of course, and that just really resonated with me. But yeah, I saw her the day before she died, and it was this thing too. Even after she stopped helping us, me and my siblings would go see her every so often, and she loved it when we came and visited. Um, she lived in a very poor home, never had a lot of money. I don't think she ever had air conditioning. I remember one of the last times I went over there, she didn't even have air conditioning. And this was like mid to late 90s, So, it was several years ago now, but even in the 90s to not have air conditioning, it was like almost unheard of. But I remember it being so hot inside of her house when we went and visited, and she had fans going and stuff. Um, but yeah, she died, and my brother spoke at her funeral, and I wrote the eulogy for him to read, and just tried to share with those in attendance. That's something else. Like, I didn't go. Listen to how crappy this is. I didn't go because I had to work, and again, like, I didn't. It was my first experience dealing with death, and I didn't understand how important it is to go to someone's funeral. I didn't understand how much of an impact a death can have on you. Um, I mean, like a timely death. Now, if someone is, a 15-year-old child or something and they die, it's an untimely death. Like, obviously, there's a tremendous amount of impact, but this wasn't, that situation. This was a natural death from natural causes. She had a very long life, and it just didn't dawn at me on me at the time, and I missed her funeral, and uh, yeah, it was like one of the first times understanding, that there are some moments in life you can never get back. If you miss someone's funeral, that's it. Like, there's no do-over or makeup or anything for it. Um, and I know Miss Lou, I know she forgives me. But it taught me a great lesson about, well, just about life. Anyways, so I wrote the eulogy. My brother delivered it, and he was the only one to speak, other than clergy. Um, and just to know that, you know, her entire life, she lived her entire life, and one of the most significant things that she did in her life was to care for us for a couple of years. Um, yeah, it's awesome. What a gift. What an absolute tremendous gift. That I give credit to the Lord, uh, because ultimately I believe the Lord is in charge of all of that. But also, it was by the hand of my grandparents as well. She was working for my grandparents in elderly care, caring for the patients, the customers at Adams and Kenton Nursing Home, and then she transitioned into helping us. And I think she was even still working there, or or like after she stopped helping us, she continued on working there. Um, but yeah, so like that experience is also something that Ruth had a very big part of. And Ruth, what I remember from her as a kid at that time is she would always bring over puzzles and games for us. Um, they were always, my grandparents in general were always so generous with the gifts that they would give, me and my siblings, but it wasn't just me and my siblings, it was all of their grandchildren. Um, and even stuff like, I remember, I remember my mom. So they had this nursing home. So it was like a fully contained facility where they had patients living in. So they had like a full on laundry area, where they would do that. They had a beauty shop where they would let the customers come in and get their hair done, or whatever it was. Um, the kitchen was an industrial kitchen, and that's what I'm getting at here. I remember my mom. We had this like 80s Woody station wagon, and I remember my mom backing up to the door of the kitchen and just loading stuff in to bring to the house, for the family, and that was all by my grandparents' hand. That what a blessing. What a blessing that you could just do that. You could just go to your parents' place and just load up and grab whatever you want and take it home. And then one of their employees, Miss Lou, would come over and actually prepare it and cook it for you. Uh, wow, what a gift! What an absolute blessing. Yeah, so Sadie Lou was just this very kind spirit who had probably went through an amount of difficulties. I mean, single mother, young, all of the social context of what I was just laying out of what that meant in the 50s, um, had challenges that I never saw, but she kept the beauty of her spirit, and she passed that on to me and my siblings. And um, yeah, she was just a tremendous gift that we were able to experience in our life. So that's one of my mothers, Miss Lou. And then Ruth, who, like, this whole video series that I'm doing is it's because I really do want to share information that can help people if they are pursuing doing in-home elderly care. But it's also, the whole thing is a tribute to Ruth and John, both of my grandparents. But because I, actually took care of Ruth, I got to know her on a deeper level than either of my grandparents, or heck, I'd say most family members outside of my siblings. I got to know her on a tremendously deep level, and to transition past a typical grandmother grandson relationship as well, just to see her as a person, and not like, your typical grandmother was saying, when we were kids, she would bring over puzzles, and she would bring over games, and she'd bring over ice cream or whatever it was, and she used to always want to go out to our house. I don't know if this is a thing nationwide, but in the regional newspaper on Mondays, they would release what is called the mini page, and it was like a section of the paper that was strictly for kids. So it had like crossword puzzles and um, little games and stories and stuff that you could do. She'd always save that for me, and let me like work it at the kitchen table. Um, Typical grandmother grandson stuff, right? But as we went into this last season of her life, she was just a person that needed help, and I was just a person who was doing what I could to assist her in getting that help. Um, and even through all of that, I'll give Ruth the same compliment. Even through all of that, with her living this life and raising a family and being married, and having all these grandkids and etc., and having a career, a family business career, and then that shifted into, my grandparents had different properties, and so that shifted into like a property management thing, and all of that. And then like her personal health condition getting worse, losing her sight, losing her mobility, losing her hearing. She always kept a sweet spirit about herself, and I never felt anything from her other than the love that she had for me and she had for her family, and the pride that she had in me and her family. And it's a tremendous gift. Not everyone gets that, you know. And I just have just tremendous gratitude for that experience. Very sweet woman. And then my third mother is my actual mother, and um, different parenting style. And I tell you, it's I don't want to uh, I don't want to disparage my parents, but I do want to be um, honest about things, and it's a difficult relationship. It's a difficult relationship to manage and navigate, and I think that my parents dealt with struggles that were existing before me and my siblings were ever on the planet, and a lot of those items, because they didn't get taken care of, they got spilled over into us, and a lot of those things carry on to this day. Um, But with my mother, it wasn't always pins and needles. Um, but there were definitely a lot of pins and needles moments, and I'm so blessed that to kind of take the edge off of some of that, there were the Ruths and the Miss Lou's in my life. Um, and with my mother, I forgive her, and I know that Ruth forgives her, and yeah, I wish her the best happiness that she can have, and hopefully, look, I believe this goes back to the faith-based point. I believe that all things are possible through the Lord. So, no one's book is ultimately written until the grave. So there could be a different season, hopefully in the future, and I would appreciate that and enjoy it. So yeah, those were my three mothers, um, and I'm glad to have had the experience with all of them, and because they've certainly formed me into who I am, and they've um, put me in a position to have many of the abilities that I have, and I don't think that you can I don't think that you can look at life like, man, my life sure is screwed up because this person was in it or whatever. I mean, I think the question you have to ask yourself is, what can I learn from this situation that I'm in, or what can I learn from this individual? Or you've got to process it in that way. If you don't, you're just going to go down a path of misery. Misery and regret and resentment and just the negative qualities of life. And that's no way to live. And you can't buy your way out of it, or think that you can cultivate things in your life to give you that peace. I don't think it works that way. And I think that there are several examples that you could look at outside of me or my life that would give you that same conclusion. So, all right, that's it. Like I said, I just wanted to speak about mothers because it's Mother's Day, and talk about Ruth and Sadie Lou and my own mom, and some of the experiences that I had with them. And I'll be back on next week talking more directly about doing in home elderly care. So, thank you. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.